Here is your latest African news. Mali cuts off military cooperation with France. Mali's ruling government has announced it was breaking off from its defense accords with former colonial ruler France, condemning flagrant violations of its national sovereignty by the French troops there. Mali military spokesman Maïga cited multiple instances of French forces having violated the country's airspace, while also referring to the June 2021 decision by France to end joint operations with Malian forces. Tensions between France and the military government in Mali, which seized power in August 2000, have been rising for some time. The announcement, threatened several times over the past few weeks, was the last confirmation of deteriorating relations between the two countries. The agreements being ended set the framework for France's presence in Mali in 2014, which was signed a year after French troops deployed a large force towards occupied Mali. Burkina Faso. Race to save 8 miners trapped for 2 weeks. Rescue workers are racing against the clock to save 8 miners who have been trapped for 2 weeks in a Canadian-operated mine in Burkina Faso. Trevali Mining Corp announced on April 16th that 8 miners, 6 from Burkina Faso, a Zambian and a Tanzanian, were missing following a flood underground at a zinc mine in Perkoa, 100 kilometers from the capital Ouagadougou. Prime Minister Albert Ouedraogo, in a visit to the site, blamed irresponsibility by those in charge at the mine. He alleged that several days before the accident, dynamite was used in the open-air part of the mine, which weakened the underground gallery and enabled the flooding. Ouedraogo said there would be an inquiry to find out who was responsible and had barred the mine officials from leaving the country. The families of 6 miners have filed cases against persons unknown for attempted manslaughter, endangering life and failing to assist a person in danger. The fate of the miners has lit up social networks with calls for solidarity and efforts to save the men. Kenya and Morocco. Kenya and Morocco to increase minimum wage. The governments of Kenya and Morocco are set to increase the minimum wage to cushion workers against further erosion of their purchasing power. Speaking at Labor Day celebrations in Nairobi, Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta said a rise of 12% was necessary to help workers cope with a surge in consumer prices, which have been partly driven by the war in Ukraine. Kenyans have seen commodities including cooking oil and fuel go up in price, exacerbated by supply concerns following the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Meanwhile, in Morocco for other workers, the increase will be 10%. The deal was sealed in an agreement between the government, major labor unions and the Federation of Employers. The agreement also includes an increase in family allowance and retirement benefits. South Africa. Protesting miners stop speech by President Cyril Ramaphosa. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa abandoned his Workers' Day speech at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium, northwestern city of Rustenburg, when striking mine workers stormed the stage. The workers employed by Sibanye Stillwater Mine are demanding a wage increase of $63 per month instead of the $53 amount being offered by the mine. Ramaphosa had decided to mark the Workers' Day, a public holiday in South Africa, to mark May 1st by giving a speech to union members in Rustenburg, a mining center. Ramaphosa had to be whisked away as protesters demanded that he leaves. He had attended the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, organized Workers' Day celebrations. COSATU had warned that government and relevant stakeholders need to acknowledge the plight of workers. They say the government has failed to honor the 2018 Public Service Wage Agreement. Ethiopia. Fighting breaks out in Amhara despite humanitarian ceasefire. 5 weeks after Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced a humanitarian ceasefire, it is already beginning to fray as fighting in the northern region of Amhara has erupted again. The hills of Amhara have been the scene of fighting between federal government forces, the TPLF terrorists and other militia groups for months. In January, Abiy announced a national dialogue with the aim of bringing peace to the country, but the TPLF seems hell-bent on continuing the attacks. Senegal. FIFA sanctions Senegalese team over fan disorder. The Senegalese national team has been sanctioned by FIFA for the incidents that took place during the second leg of the World Cup 2022 qualifying playoff between Senegal and Egypt in Dakar on 29th March. In a statement, FIFA fined Senegal's soccer federations $180,000 for fan disorder at a World Cup playoff game. Senegal went on to win the shootout in Dakar in March, with Salah's Liverpool teammate Sadio Mane scoring the decisive spot kick. The Algerian Federation will also have to pay a fine of close to $3,000 for the use of smoke bombs and throwing objects during the Algeria-Cameroon playoff on 29th March in Blida. Algeria, on the other hand, appealed to FIFA to have the match replayed because of the scandalous refereeing, according to the Algerian Federation of Gambian Bakary Gassama. Africa-wide. 6 African countries among world top destinations. Global travel website Big 7 Travel has shortlisted 50 countries worth exploring for wanderlust tourists conscious of their carbon footprint. Africa shines on the podium with white sand beaches as far as one can behold. The Gambia was ranked 3rd in the world and first in Africa on the 2022 top eco-friendly places to visit, followed by Botswana and Tanzania. Cape Verde is ranked 43rd as Mauritius takes the last spot on the Big 7 Travel 2022 ranking. Ecotourism is a form of tourism involving visiting fragile and relatively unspoiled natural areas in a way that benefits the local communities. This low-impact alternative to standard mass tourism has been gaining traction in the past few years. A 2021 report projected that the global ecotourism industry would generate over $300 billion by 2027. In 2019, the industry garnered $181.1 billion.
Kenya. Kenyans petition Prince William over land evictions. Families that were evicted from their land in Kericho by British colonialists in the early 1900s to pave way for tea plantations have petitioned the royal family for compensation and an apology. The families are part of over 500,000 indigenous members of the Kipsigi and Talai communities whose ancestral land was forcibly taken from them at the beginning of the 20th century. Many men and women were raped, arbitrarily detained, and in some cases killed whilst trying to resist the evictions. The appeal letter was delivered to the Duke of Cambridge. The letter comes amidst a wave of protest for royal tours of the Caribbean to be scrapped unless the royal family uses them to address slavery. Ethiopia. Ethiopia foils cyber attack on Nile Dam financial institutions. The Ethiopian Information Network Security Agency (INSA) on Tuesday said it had foiled cyber attack attempts targeting the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and major financial institutions. According to the Director General of the agency, Mr. Shumet Gizo, said the failed cyber attacks included attempts to impede the works of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam by targeting 37,000 interlinked computers used by financial institutions. He alleged that an organization which is sponsored by countries that envy peace and development endeavors of Ethiopia had declared cyber war against Ethiopia under the motto of Black Pyramid War. Zimbabwe. Parliament to summon Mnangagwa over rampant corruption. An independent lawmaker and the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee says President Emmerson Mnangagwa should appear before it to face questions on lack of action on corruption allegations and other issues raised by Zimbabwe's Auditor General. In an interview, Norton Member of Parliament Themba Maliswa said Mnangagwa should give details about his government's failure to rein in some state officials, including ministers linked to corruption. Maliswa is the chairperson of the African Parliamentaries Against Corruption, an anti-corruption group which wants the Zimbabwean government to be probed over unaccounted funds amounting to billions of dollars as per the AG Mildred Chiri's latest report. Brian Dube, chairperson of the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee, said Mnangagwa should inform Zimbabweans why he was not taking actions against alleged rampant corruption in his government. In her report, Chiri said some ministries are failing to account for millions of dollars and indications are that they are not willing to do so in the near future. Eastern and Southern Africa. Comesa warns on Indomie noodles after Egypt recall. The Comesa Competition Commission (CCC) has warned consumers against eating some chicken and vegetable-flavored instant noodles commonly referred to as Indomie that were recalled from the Egyptian market on the 3rd of May. The recalls followed tests by the Food and Safety Authority (FSA) of Egypt, which found that Indomie's chili, chicken, and vegetable flavor packets contained aflatoxins and pesticide residues in quantities that exceeded safe limits. Following the findings, some 733,340 cartons of different Indomie flavors have been withdrawn from the Egyptian market by the supplier. The FSA stated that other than those 3 products, Indomie noodles were found to be generally safe for human consumption. The Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa watchdog warned consumers in markets within the bloc, including East African Community countries, said for Tanzania and South Sudan to watch out for the affected product. Cameroon to chair AU's Peace and Security Council. Cameroon will this month preside over the Peace and Security Council (PSC), the standing decision-making organ of the African Union (AU) on the prevention, management, and resolution of conflicts. The PSC will have meetings within the framework of the Extraordinary Summit of the African Union on 28 May. In a statement, the PSC say the meetings would center on governance and security challenges in the continent, namely unconstitutional change of government, humanitarian crisis, and terrorism. There will be 10 meetings, with 2 of them being open sessions. Top of the list is security challenges in the Horn of Africa and the Lake Chad Basin, which covers 7 countries: Algeria, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Libya, Niger, and Nigeria. The protocol relating to the establishment of the Peace and Security Council was adopted on 9th July 2002 in Durban and came into force in December 2003. The PSC became fully operational in early 2004. South Africa. Long wait continues for apartheid reparations. People who are now elderly and suffered terrible losses at the hands of South Africa's white minority race regime are determinedly waiting to be heard. For nearly a week and in deepening cold, more than 70 activists demanding reparations for apartheid crimes have occupied the steps of the Constitutional Court in Braamfontein, Johannesburg. They claim that more than 100,000 victims of apartheid crimes are still owed reparations and say they will demand that none of them receives less than $1 million USD. The mostly elderly activists, who all suffered great personal losses at the brutal hands of white minority rule in South Africa, say the country's mechanism of redress for apartheid atrocities, particularly the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, have largely failed to secure the dignity of the victims of those crimes. The activists, who mostly come from Gauteng's East Rand, though some are from elsewhere in South Africa, are organized under the banner of the Khulumani Support Group, a non-governmental organization that campaigns for redress for the victims of apartheid crimes. The road that has led them to the Constitutional Court has been a long one, as neither local government structures nor parliament respond to their many memorandums. Now they say they will not leave the steps of South Africa's apex court, which they call the country's biggest house, the group's spokesman stated. Mali nonuplets in perfect health on their first birthday. The world's only nonuplate, 9 babies born at the same time, are in perfect health as they celebrate their first birthday, their father has said. The twins are still in the care of the clinic in Morocco, where they were born. He said their mother Halima Cissé, 26, was also doing well. The father had just returned to Morocco for the first time in 6 months. The babies broke the Guinness World Record for the most children delivered in a single birth to survive. Ahead of the birth on 4th May 2021, Mrs. Cissé was flown to Morocco by the Malian government for special care. Multiple births are risky, and mothers with more than 4 fetuses at a time are advised to terminate in some countries where abortion is legal. There are also risks the babies could develop health problems due to their premature birth, such as sepsis and cerebral palsy. Mrs. Cissé and the children are currently living in what their father described as a medicalized flat that belongs to the owner of the Iron Borgia clinic in Casablanca, where the babies were born.
Guinea says it will prosecute ousted President Alpha Condé for murder. Guinea has said it would prosecute former President Alpha Condé, who was toppled in a military coup last September, for murder and other crimes committed during his time in office. Condé is among 27 former senior officials who face prosecution for murder, assassination, and complicity. Other alleged crimes include detention, torture, kidnapping, disappearances, rape, and other sexual abuse and looting. Conde, today aged 84, was ousted by mutinous soldiers amid anger at his successful bid for a third term. In 2010, he had become the first democratically elected president in the history of the Western African country. But his popularity dived in his second term as critics accused him of authoritarianism and opposition protests were violently repressed. Dozens died, the overwhelming majority of them civilians. East Africa. Parents urge Uganda to release Kenyan children held for fishing. 4 Kenyan children are being held in Uganda's Luzira maximum security prison for engaging in fishing on that country's side of Lake Victoria. The 4 include 2 secondary school students and 2 in primary school. The candidates risk missing their national exams this year after Ugandan authorities slapped each with a 50,000 Kenyan shillings, that is $431 fine, or a jail term of 6 months. Efforts by their parents and guardians to have them released have been futile. It has been reported that the boys are living in dreadful conditions and are forced to work on farms with little food and no medication. The children were among 60 Kenyan fishermen arrested by Ugandan security officers on several beaches in Budalangi and Funyula on Lake Victoria in the last few months. Family members say the 4 who were presented in a Kampala court were found guilty of being in possession of illegal fishing gear. Kenya. Kenya trains its domestic workers in the Middle East about rights. Kenyan authorities are training domestic workers who accept jobs in the Middle East about their rights after years of abuse, including assault, rape, and death. Kenyan officials say at least 23 domestic workers have died while working in the Middle East since November. According to the labor officials, most of these deaths occurred in Saudi Arabia. Saudi officials have reported that all 23 of these deaths resulted from cardiac arrests. In April 2020, rights advocacy group Amnesty International reported that Kenyans employed as domestic workers in the Middle East often complain of lack of pay, forced labor, physical abuse, rape, and dangerous working conditions. Kenya is now providing safety training for domestic workers employed abroad as an estimated 30,000 Kenyans migrate to the Middle East to find work each year. Kenya's Labour Minister Simon Chelugui has said his department was working with Saudi officials on labour law reforms. Mozambique. Mozambique plans a law to regulate and tax churches. Mozambique is planning a new law that will regulate churches' activities, impose taxes on them, and require them to have a minimum number of 200 signatures in order to register. Justice, Constitutional and Religious Affairs Minister Helena Kida said a government analysis has revealed warning signs amid a runaway proliferation of churches. Mozambique has a total of 900 officially registered religious denominations, but a lot more exist. The Christian Council of Mozambique, CCM, is backing most of the provisions of the proposed law, saying it recognizes that the government wants to bring order. West Africa. Togolese president agrees to Mali mediation role. Togo's President Faure Gnassingbe has agreed to act as a mediator in Mali's political crisis as the West African country's military government faces pressure to re-establish civilian rule. Mali has been in turmoil since the military seized power in the Sahel state in August 2020, with negotiations ongoing over the length of time needed to restore constitutional order. Relations between former colonial power France and the military government has also deteriorated, with Mali breaking off from its defense accords with Paris, condemning flagrant violations of its national sovereignty by French troops. Mali's military government had initially promised to restore civilian rule. It was hit with sanctions after failing to meet a commitment to West Africa bloc ECOWAS to hold elections in February this year. Diop said because of the security situation in Mali and the need for reforms, the country would need 24 months to return to constitutional order. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, follow, share and like our video. It's the best way of supporting us. And remember, Africa is watching.